Welcome to the Squared Circle Pit with your host, Rob Pasbani.
Now entering the Squared Circle Pit, we have Diego from Lions at the Gate, formerly of El Nino as well. And I want to mention Lions at the Gate, you guys have a new album coming out this month, The Excuses We Cannot Make, on August 25th. It's your debut album, very exciting. Yep. Congratulations on getting that out there. I'm sure that must have been a lot of sleepless nights.
A lot of sleepless and frustrating nights. Now it's finally coming, and we're excited. You know, we were able to put the pre-sale up, and the reaction has been awesome. You know, we're extremely happy to see that people actually enjoy and love the music. It gave us a boost of confidence. I mean, we're kind of I don't want to say we're going in there cocky, but we're pretty proud of what we created. So
awesome. And have you had time to watch pro wrestling while working on the new album?
You know what? I'm going to be 100% honest. Not as much as I want to.
Okay.
I actually end up having to go to the recaps on YouTube or on Peacock, Instagram, WWE. Their Instagram is great for recapping and stuff. So that's mainly what I've been able to do. I was able to get to an AEW. Thank you to Jonathan, our manager, who was able to take me there. I wish I could go to more live events. Also on the Fight app, I've been watching a little bit of NWA and stuff like that.
Oh, nice. Well, I don't judge. Any wrestling fan is a friend of mine, even if you don't have time. It's hard to keep up with. There's a lot of hours of programming to watch. I can only imagine. In fact, it's interesting that you basically keep up on Instagram. That's how you keep up on everything.
I mean, I've been a wrestling fan since I was a kid. You know, sitting in my dad's lap Saturday mornings watching WWF at the time. You know, I just always been into it. And then as I got older, I was a little bit in and out here and there. Attitude Era I was just glued to the television. And then now I'm starting to, well, not now, but recently in the past couple of years, I'm starting to get back into it, you know, heavily. But
nice.
As my schedule allows, you know, hence the recaps on YouTube or on Instagram, stuff like that.
And did you grow up on the West Coast?
Yeah.
So what was your earliest wrestling memory? If you
Besides like the watching it on Saturday mornings and stuff, my dad took me to a live event, and I must have been like, I'd say like 5 or 6. And at the time it was at the Anaheim Convention Center. And the only match I actually remember from that time was Hulk Hogan versus Hercules. And I remember them. We were actually really close to the ring, and for a little kid, I was like, "Wow!" You know. So I remember the match, and I remember vividly they had Hercules' chain, and they were each pulling on it, and like a tug of war, the chain broke, and everybody lost their mind, and we're like, "Oh my god, they're superheroes! They're so strong!" You know, not as a kid thinking it was 100% real. You know. The chain broke and my eyes just peeled open, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
Well, your emotion was real. That was certainly real.
It was, and that's
what you brought the illusion.
I was bringing out that emotion. You know, it's funny that Jonathan was on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and he's relating music to wrestling. I relate music to wrestling a lot too. There's so many things that are similar. You know, so it's that emotion that they're pulling out of you. Same thing we do as musicians. We're trying to pull emotion out of you, whether it's, you know, making you want to go crazy or making you want to get, you know, romantic. So, yeah, definitely the emotion was very real.
Oh, that's awesome that you see the connection there, and just like the ride that you want to take the audience on, basically with their playing with their emotions.
Yeah, I'm like when Macho Man hit Ricky the Dragon Steamboat with the bell and the throat at the time, I thought it was real. And I was scared for Ricky. I'm like, he's never going to talk again.
I'm with you. I was very frightened for Ricky Steamboat at that moment. I was totally caught up in it, and I hated Macho Man. Also, part of it, yeah, it's because they would show it every week on the Saturday morning show to remind you, like, he is a terrible person.
But now, as an older person, you know, like I realize and respect, like, what great storytelling it was, and how like professional these guys were, especially Ricky and Macho Man, just how good they were at their craft. Just
Oh,
like
absolutely.
they're telling their story. We're eating it up. We're loving it. Again, very similar to music. They're perfect at their craft.
So, who were your favorite wrestlers growing up? Who were your guys?
Growing up, I mean, I was a little Hulkster. Um, then, as time was going by, I loved Mr. Perfect, Ric Flair, obviously The Undertaker, Bret Hart. Obviously here mostly Golden Era guys. Then going into the Attitude Era is definitely Undertaker, Stone Cold. I was never really like a lot of my friends are going to be really mad at me for saying this. I was never like a Ultimate Warrior guy. Rowdy Piper was great. I love how much smack talk he was always giving people. Those are the ones that right now stick out. And then of course I was growing up Mexican here in California. My dad would actually, I remember we would go to Tijuana, TJ, every Friday night to go see the AAA matches.
That's so
And
funny.
that was awesome because there was like, back in those days, there was not a lot of like security, and we'd get there early, and the kids would be jumping in the ring, playing around. And another cool wrestling memory is I remember my first time I jumped over the steel banisters and jumped into the ring, and my dad was cool with it. All the other kids were doing it, and I remember trying to do, jump off the ropes, and I just remember how painful it was as a kid, and I was like, why does that hurt? These guys do it every night. And I instantly just left the ring. I'm like, I'm gonna go back and sit down. I don't belong. But yeah, the AAA Lucha Libre matches on Friday nights in Mexico. We do that a lot too.
That's so cool. And I feel like you talk about larger than life. Like, I feel, especially for a kid, like I get caught up in Lucha Libre now. I can't imagine this. I wish I had it as a kid to be able to attend it live.
I remember I met Mil Mascaras one time, and he shook my hand, and his hands were like still probably twice the size of mine. The guy was gigantic, and he was the coolest dude. And those dudes out there, they're wrestling. I mean, happens here too, but they're wrestling into their 60s at like a decent level. But then even then, I remember seeing Rey Mysterio as a little tiny guy in Mexico. A lot of the guys that ended up going to WCW when they started bringing the Lucha Libre wrestlers, La Parca.
Psychosis.
Yeah, Psychosis. Man, he was awesome. The way he would just
Juventud.
jump off turnbuckles, he was awesome. Yeah,
He had the craziest leg drop too. I feel it's like even now watching those matches back, they totally hold up from Nitro, and Psychosis really sticks out to me as someone who didn't get the credit. Like, Rey Mysterio wouldn't have gotten as over as he did if he didn't have Psychosis there to be his base to catch him on all those crazy flips and stuff.
Totally. And those were, back in those WCW days, those were some of my favorite matches. They were nuts, because they brought that high speed, style, that Lucha Libre style, to American wrestling, where, for the most part of that time, American wrestling was, body slams, suplexes, clotheslines, and here they are flying around, spinning in the air, jumping out of the ring onto the floor, putting themselves in a lot of danger. And I was like, whoa, this is great.
It really unlocked a new level of my fandom as well, because like you said, I've never seen anything like it at the time. Like, Rey Mysterio was basically my first exposure. I guess I was able to watch the Lucha stuff. Like, we had it on either Telemundo or Univision, but like I just never caught it, or it never got my attention. But like watching that, I'm like, oh, this is the now of wrestling. This is what everything should be.
And even their referees, like, they had their heels, the referee heels. Here in the U.S., at least in my opinion, they were kind of like, in the middle. We were here just to count to three, and obviously now, like, they're really directing the matches, and listening to the back what's going on, telling the wrestlers where to go and their spots and stuff. But I remember the referees in Mexico, some of them were heels, and I remember they'd go and do the 3 count, and they would like pause on the 3, giving the heel that time to kick out. And as they're going down, he would kick out, and you'd be like, "Oh my god!" You'd be getting mad at the referee as much as you were at the rest.
Yeah, and I imagine that must have been very cool to see Rey Mysterio and Juventud and all these wrestlers before they were really big names in the U.S. and then slowly see how they made their name in the U.S. And it's almost like discovering a band at the local level, then they blow up, and you're like, "Oh, I knew them before they were cool."
Yeah. I saw Rey Mysterio when he weighed only like 130 pounds.
Yeah, Rey Mysterio, in my opinion, is one of the best of all time. Even now, I'm amazed at the level of matches he's able to have with the amount of knee surgeries that he's had, and he's still having some really exciting matches. Like, talk about a person who is able to draw emotion out of people. I don't know if there's anyone better than Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, I would assume and I would hope that he is helping a lot of the wrestlers, learn and be better at their craft. And I'm pretty sure they are, because they are helping him look just as good as he did back then.
Oh yeah, exactly. And they want to, like they want to make sure people today think of him as the way they thought of him when
Yeah,
we were growing up.
that's why I refer to it as a craft, because if you're in a craft, the elders are really helping the younger guys hone in and become better at that craft, whatever it may be. Whether it's music, professional wrestling, if you're a part of, sheet metals union, these older cats are definitely trying to, or they should be helping the younger guys out.
Yeah, everyone benefits if everyone knows what they're doing, if everyone's skills are top notch. Who were the guys that kind of helped you out in the music scene and kind of gave you the inside tips?
You know,
People in the
I
music scene not as giving.
it's weird. I've never really put that much thought into it. Obviously, the guys in my band, we got each other's backs. So Christian, Aru, and Steven, those dudes, we got each other's back. Obviously, that's a brand new project, but moving along or going backwards, I should say. You know, I'm kind of like trying to think of somebody who gave me like that light bulb advice. It was a lot of trial and error for me. I made a lot of stupid mistakes. I got a lot of lectures. And I'm somebody though who learns very quickly, and I try not to make the same mistake twice. The first time was an accident. The second time was a decision. Is what I learned. And so, I was just a knucklehead. And sometimes trial by fire is the best way to learn, because you're gonna get hurt and you're gonna get beat up, but you're burnt, but you're never gonna do that again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You mentioned that. Oh,
I would say Aru. Aru has actually been one of the guys that's helped me the most. He's sat down. We've had long conversations about everything. It doesn't even, pertain
the
to
other
music.
guitarist in your band.
Yeah. Aru Lester, the other guitarist. And now I'm lucky that I can do the same for him when he needs somebody to talk to, and life is happening. He reaches out to me. You know.
Do any of the other guys in your band like pro wrestling? Do you have anyone to talk to about pro wrestling?
Well, Jonathan, our manager, is heavily,
Of course.
heavily into wrestling. The other guys, not so much. Christian will remember some golden era stuff. Steven also will remember some like attitude. He's one of the younger guys in the band, so he remembers like he's got this stone cold that he thinks is great, this impression that he does, and I'm just like, oh, shut up, man. You sound nothing like it. What? I'm like, bro, enough. I'm just waking up.
That's great. Have you ever been just on, I don't know how much touring you guys have been doing, but just on the road and it's like, oh, it's Monday, let's put wrestling on. And they're like, get out of here.
No, unfortunately not yet. I don't think they would want to sit in there and watch with me. They'll probably be like, oh, you just want to watch men in underwear, grease it up. And I'm like, dude, it's not about that. They're trunks, okay?
Show some respect. This is the sport of kings.
Yeah, so it'll be me in the bunk, just again watching my recaps and stuff like that. So I try and stay as up to date as possible with everything.
So you said you got back into it a few years ago. What pulled you back in that got you watching week to week again?
A friend of mine was wrestling, or still is wrestling with NWA, And he's the one that actually like, hey, download the Fight app. You'll be able to watch NWA stuff. And then I was like, okay, cool. And it was like there's still COVID, so it was like nobody was in the or in the seats and stuff like that. So like, okay, this is cool, not what I remember it. But then that started getting me into like YouTubing all the old matches. Like I went through like a phase where I was watching all the old Macho Man, matches, all the old WrestleManias, and then slowly I was like, what's going on now? I've been hearing about AEW and this, that, and the other, And so I started picking up, got the Peacock app, and I started watching through Peacock. And I was like, okay, this is fun again. Because for me, at least for a while, it was starting to get kind of bland. The storylines like weren't keeping my attention, and it was.
When did you fall out of it? Like when did you kind of?
I probably fell out of it like mid-aggression era.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, that's I feel they were really on a downturn.
Yeah.
A lot of people left.
Yeah, and so that's when I was just like, okay, I'm gonna pump the brakes here a little bit. And then, once I started paying attention, I saw Undertaker was like retiring once and then twice, finally.
It's like, all right, go away.
All respect to Undertaker, one of my favorite wrestlers as well, But that's when I kind of started like, well, let's see what's going on now. And I started picking up, and I'm like, okay, it's kind of fun again. And then just my youth, all the old memories of sitting down with my dad started coming back, and it almost didn't even matter what the storyline was. It was just I was in a comfort place, watching wrestling again. Just those remembering those times watching with my dad, and so the storylines were secondary. I almost didn't care about them. And then I started looking more like who was like really talented at wrestling. You can always tell like who the brawlers are and who's really studying wrestling and stuff like that. And, that's when I started like again not paying attention to the storylines now. Just quality of matches.
So who are your guys now?
I like the Judgment Day storyline, but I feel like it's getting a little slow. Like, where are we going with this? I like the same goes for the Bloodline storyline. Like, where are we going with this?
Did you watch SummerSlam? Or I guess I'm assuming you just heard about what happened.
Yeah, I just heard about what happened. Yeah. I mean, is he gonna really quit? No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Everything is telling me he's quit. He's going to AEW. They've got to pay for his stuff, and I'm like, no, he's not. He's not. So I think right now I wouldn't say I have a favorite guy. So I'm just kind of like again like watching overall quality. I will say like Rhea Ripley's entertaining. Dominic Mysterio, who at first I thought wasn't really that good on the microphone. He's starting to kind of like I'm enjoying now his rants on the microphone and stuff like that. So that's why I picked up on Judgment Day, because in the beginning, I would say with the exception of Edge, none of them were really that great on the microphone. Like I wasn't really brought in, but now all of them, I'm sure they're rehearsing and practicing and taking pointers. They're all gotten a lot better.
Yeah, they all found their chemistry amongst each other as well. I think.
Yeah.
So, do you follow? I'm seeing you're following WWE week to week. Do you follow AEW week to week or not as closely? Just kind of
not as closely. No, to be honest, almost barely. Which I do want to get into because it is wrestling, and I like that WWE has some form of competition. I believe competition is great. Am I and many other people waiting for another Attitude Era? Hell yeah! Are we going to get it? No. It gets a lot weirder once you have a board to answer to, and you're a publicly traded company.
Well, when you say we're waiting for an Attitude Era, what are you waiting for? Like, what does that mean to you? You know what I mean? Like, what do you want?
The amount of violence. Now they don't ever bleed anymore. And I
sounds like you need to watch AEW because they're bleeding every week.
And that's what I've been told. Like, hey, if you like the Attitude Era, you're gonna love AEW.
Yeah, it definitely tries to do that.
Yeah,
it's funny because I obviously love the Attitude Era as well. I feel like we're around the same age. We grew up like the same time periods.
Yeah.
But I go back on Peacock and I watch some of that stuff, and a lot of it, I'm almost like, in a way, I'm happy I'm embarrassed because it's like I shouldn't like the same thing I liked when I was 13. because some of it does not hold up. Like there's still like the Austin stuff is amazing. Don't get me wrong, but like once you go down like Val Venus and
I 100% agree because Val Venus started pulling up on the feed. I'm like, God, I'm the same. Actually, feel the same way you do. I'm like, that was corny.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that you forget. Like you almost block out all the shitty stuff that was going on because like the Austin stuff was so cool and the
super
best.
Over the top. Yeah, like what else can we do? There's a porn star now who may have banged the boss's wife, and we're gonna, cut it off.
Like the Truth Commission and the like there was what was it the Golga and Luna, like when ICP came in, I forget what that faction was called. But yeah, like there's a lot of weird stuff on the undercard, and there was no good wrestling. Like the main events had good. Like that's the thing about I feel modern wrestling. You got in at the best time to get back into it. Like it sounds like you got in around the COVID era because once AEW came around, I feel like WWE was like, oh shit. We can't be coasting anymore. We need to step it up. We need to stop holding back.
That's why I say like, competition's great because it makes you, think about what you're doing right now. And AEW is a flea on their ass. WWE is just so huge, but they're making noise and people are paying attention. And I'm sure Vince was listening when people are saying AEW has gotten way better than WWF. Although that was probably a small, percentage of people saying that, he was listening and okay, we got to ramp up our stuff. Because
and I think once COVID, once they started letting people back into shows, AEW was getting crazy reactions, and with WWE, I felt while they were getting those wild reactions initially, the crowd almost started turning on the story a little bit. And they noticed how bad that looked. And they were like, all right, let's like not manipulate them as much and just give them what they want, which for the longest time WWE would not do. So,
well, I mean, credit the internet, because before you either watched one channel or the other, like you were either a Nitro guy or a Raw guy. And it was harder to get the information of what was going on the other side. Now it's like you're watching, AEW and you know exactly what's going on WWE at the same time. So the consumer, us, we're not as gullible anymore. Like, give us what we want, because if not, we're gonna go over here.
I've definitely, for me, for sure, I've numbed to certain wrestling tropes just because I see them so much. Like I talk about it on the show all the time, how I'm over ladder matches. I can't stand them anymore just because I feel like they're so, the violence and the pain is not equivalent to the necessity to have this match.
I mean, I miss the violence and the pain, but at the same time, I respect these wrestlers who are putting, their bodies.
They're human beings.
Human beings, exactly. You look at somebody like Undertaker, who is working through broken orbital bones, because it was all about the roar of the crowd. It's all about coming through for the fans, whom he never met any of them, but he still, took that craft so seriously that he was working through all that pain. And then on the sadder side of things, you got your guys who end up getting addicted to, painkillers and stuff. So the darker side of things, they are human beings. Let's respect them. And maybe they shouldn't be jumping off of, 30-foot ladders.
Calculated risks is all. Like risk versus reward. But even if you look at Mick Foley, who did not have a pain pill addiction, still, like if you watch him walk now, like it's very difficult for him, and it's very sad. He was one of my guys in the Attitude. Like he was my number one guy because I was really into like the hardcore stuff. I love ECW. Just him being the king of the death match at the time. He was totally the one, and so it's like I always keep up with him, and it's sad to see like the after effects.
And you do, as a human, you do feel bad for them. I mean, look at Hogan. Guy used to be 6'5", 6'7".
Oh my God, another one who could barely walk. Yeah,
you see him like hobbling along because he's literally lost inches from his height. So many back surgeries. you do feel bad. They are human beings. I remind myself of that. As much as I love the entertainment, they're human beings. They shouldn't have to be, putting their bodies at such risk.
And he never fell off a ladder. Like, what's so crazy is he just did a leg drop every day in his career, and that fucked up his hip and his back.
Dude doing a leg drop.
Yeah, just that amount of, like, just, the the area from the ring mat to the height he had on the leg drop is enough to mess him up in his senior years.
Yeah. Sad.
And you even see it, to relate it to musicians. I feel like you see that with like older musicians now as well. Just everyone has back problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, I started, I jumped in the professional music scene in my 20s, and now I'm 42. And now, like, even on the last couple tours, I'm recognizing things about myself that I can't do necessarily anymore. And things are changing for myself. I'm like, okay, I can't. It's nothing compared to like wrestlers, obviously, but I noticed, like, I used to be able to eat whatever I wanted, jump on stage, and that was fine. Now, if I eat even 2-3 hours before I play, I've noticed, like, I'm slower. I start burping throughout the show because I try to put on a really physical show.
Totally get it.
I'm very uncomfortable. I'm sluggish. I'm not performing the best I can. So now it's like, okay, you're just not eating until after the show. And again, that's a real lame correlation to professional wrestling, but music, you definitely see some of these older cats. You're like, dude, you're a legend. Your legacy's there. Move on. Start the next phase.
Yeah, or conversely, like, they're just, all right, I'm on in 2 hours. I got to start doing my stretches. I got to start doing my, you have the routine, and just like you said, can't eat before the show, can't drink. Yeah. And also just drinking in general, just those hangovers hit a lot harder the older you get.
Oh, man. Once I hit my 30s, I realized that I learned what a hangover was. Now I can't tell you the last time I really had a hangover because I just don't like them. Mine will last 2 days if I really have one. But yeah, and I feel like music in general is turning more towards a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah.
You're getting a lot of guys that are working out on the road. They're bringing their own weights. They're watching what they eat. They're bringing their protein powders and shit like that, so that they're taking care of themselves. I mean, you got a lot of musicians now who are going completely sober, which is great.
In general, I think the coolness factor of alcohol has really worn down a lot in the last decade or so when people start seeing the true damage that it can do.
Everyone's had the bad night where they act a fool. It is sad to see somebody who does it every single night. And
yeah,
it's no longer cool to see somebody in that stupor, or at least at that, extreme. You can have a few drinks, catch a little buzz, and you're having a great night, a time of your life. But when you move over into that next realm, it's a lifestyle of extremes. You're pushing it too hard. It's not cool anymore. You start feeling bad for the person. We all hear the stories of people who, piss themselves at night or throw up in their sleep and stuff like that. And
yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah, we don't want to be babies, So it's watching people, our band especially, turning to a more healthier lifestyle. It's great, We try to catch workouts as much as we can on the road. A couple of the guys got, what's it called? Planet Fitness memberships, just so that we can go in there, lift a few weights, jump on a treadmill. Even food, we're trying to like make more conscious, health decisions about what we're putting in our bodies because we are performing every single night. And
yeah. You want to optimize your performance, basically.
Yeah. Shoving a bunch of sodium-rich fast food into your body isn't the best idea.
Yeah, you can get a whole different kind of hangover from that.
Yeah, totally. Your hands start swelling up,
Yeah.
Shit. Constantly dehydrated. You can tell.
So let me know, you mentioned you attended an AEW live show recently. I'm guessing that's the one at the Forum. What was it like seeing it?
I saw it in Ontario.
Oh, Ontario. Okay, I got you. So, what was it like going as an adult now, compared to your childhood memories of seeing Hercules Hernandez and Hulk Hogan break the chain to now as an adult? Obviously, completely different perspective. And also, you have the perspective of being a touring artist where you've played these kind of venues and you kind of know, the behind. It's not as unique a moment because you see
Yeah,
behind the glitz a little bit. So, what was it like?
it's still really fun. It's still really cool. The caliber of product is much better than when I was a kid. You know, again, when I was a kid, they weren't as technical. Again, power slams, you got your suplex. If you were lucky, you saw a power bomb and you thought that was really painful. Now it's like they're really becoming technical. Uh, Again, honing the craft. I don't think that necessarily the brawlers get over as much right now as the technical guys. It's just kind of like, okay, I've seen that before. Ultimate Warrior used to clothesline you 5 times and then you pin you. Like, you got to do more of the clotheslines here. So you can really see which of the wrestlers are really, practicing. I don't, for lack of a better term, but honing in on that craft. So as an adult, it was still a lot of fun. It's the energy of the crowd. I think that as a performer, whether you're playing sports, music, acting, it's more so the energy that you get from the crowd. So if you get a great pop in wrestling, I'm sure that the energy from the crowd is really what hypes up the wrestler as a performer. Same goes for me as a musician, where if I see people jumping up and down, screaming, moshing, I'm getting more into it. I'm feeding off that energy. That's why, like, for me, going to a place like China, where the culture is totally different, and they don't jump, mosh, or do anything, and they're just kind of sitting there watching you. That's a hard day's work, because in my culture, I think I suck when they're just like, oh, we're being respectful, we're watching the show, you
Right.
know. So yeah, I would say that, from the performer standpoint, I can relate to these guys, knowing like it's that pop that they're getting, that gets them going, so it's still as fun as when I was a kid. I'm still respecting, how much hard work these guys put in. Because it's not just the matches themselves. I mean, the amount of how physically fit these guys are. Back growing up, you had your hacksaw Jim Duggins who didn't touch a weight, or at least didn't look like he touched a weight. You got these, overweight dudes who are just husky, brawler types getting the big crowd. Now they're not just wrestling. Now they're in the gym. As soon as they're waking up, they got to make sure they hit the gym. They got to make sure that they're eating right,
Yeah,
and
that they
on.
get time for their muscles
Yeah,
to recover as well. Beyond that.
exactly. Which I got into bodybuilding a while ago. My dad was an amateur bodybuilder, and learning how the body works, and you treat your body with nutrition you put into it. That's super important. I'm sure all these guys who are in great shape themselves could be, great personal trainers for the average Joe. These dudes look amazing. The women look amazing, very physically fit, and they have to be because they're doing all this crazy shit that they weren't doing when we were growing up and watching wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're right. It's the parallels are very clearly there, and it's all just about maintaining your body
Yeah,
to the optimal performance.
it's what we used to make money, obviously. So we better take care of it.
So, what's your favorite match of all time? Do you have one of those?
Oh man, favorite match of all time. I'm gonna be so cliche, man. It was Undertaker, Mankind, Hell in a Cell. I know that's like,
I mean, it's a great one.
it's a great one. Yeah. Watching the pay per view in general when Stone Cold really became Stone Cold was that King of the Ring when he
96. Yep.
when he finally came out with a 316 moniker and he beat
Mm-hmm.
Snake. He busted his lip open. You're like, oh, he's not coming back. He's done. Someone else is going to Jake's going to win. And he came back and won. And then Austin 316 was born. That was cool.
Yeah.
So
That was,
those really stand.
I remember I watched that Mankind Undertaker match live, and I freaked the hell out. I never would do this, but I ran into my living room and I told my parents, like, I just saw the craziest thing. You have to come in here and see this. This is insane.
Because they kept replaying it over,
Yeah.
over and over again.
Well, they had time to kill. They thought he was fucking dead.
And then, you know, I made friends with Marty Elias, who used to be a ref at WWE, and he used to tell me the behind the scenes stuff and some of the matches that he was calling. And to get behind the curtain, then I was like, oh wow, like, this is way more intense than just like watching it, you know. And he's the one that taught me really about the importance of the referee in the match. He's directing, you know, the match, calling shots, you know, listening back. And you know, he was a ref for Undertaker, Shawn Michaels. You know, that was a great match.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid. Oh man, going back to Hogan. I remember when he power slammed Andre the Giant.
Of course,
You know,
of course.
as a
Legend
kid.
WrestleMania 3 may be the event I've seen most as a kid.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, had the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat Macho Man.
Not
match,
sure. Right?
which is
Absolutely.
an immaculate match. You know, that's one that I like to go still back and watch over and over again on YouTube because it's so perfect. And then you go back and you start learning about how they had been working this match for months, you know, calling their shots and how they had numbers like, hey, number 26, what are you doing here? Just quizzing each other. That is amazing. I mean, that's extreme dedication, you know, not just on a whim calling you know, okay, you're gonna clothesline me here, you know, go for it, throw me up against the corner, you know. Just the planning that went into the match was awesome.
And it was heavily criticized at the time because, you know, the guys called it in the ring, brother. But if you think about it, it was very ahead of its time because now a lot of matches are pre-planned like that, especially like, you know, a Logan Paul match. You know, every move has to be planned for that, and it looks great. You know, it works.
He looks great. He looks like he knows what he's doing. You know, respect to him. You know, it's an entertaining match to watch.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Diego. It's been great. Always great to talk pro wrestling and a little bit of music.
Yeah.
And, of course, the Lions of the Gate album, The Excuses We Cannot Make. It's out August 25th. And you guys are hitting the road in October with Lacuna Coil and Fear Factory.
Yep. We start October 6th with Fear Factory. And then we meet up with Lacuna Coil, I think, the 12th. And we finish out the month with Lacuna Coil, Fear Factory ourselves. And this is our second tour with Lacuna. We just played a show with Fear Factory in May. I've known both bands for quite a while, so it's going to be a really fun, easygoing tour. You know, we're going to make sure we bring the best of the band for the tour and for the fans. That as a new band, you know, we're clawing and scratching for every fan we get. And one of the things I love hearing at the end of the night is, hey, we didn't know who you were, but we're fans now. You know, great. Thank you so much. Love hearing that, you know. Love hearing that talk.
Awesome. And you could pull aside Christina and Andreas and show them that Hell in a Cell match. Be like, hey guys, let's watch some real wrestling.
Yeah, I'll bring it up to them. See if they're interested in it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Diego, for entering the pit.